Hi guys, thanks for joining me. This is Amanda for my in-process video of Luke 2. I really wanted to capture the vibrancy of the angels singing in the middle of the night. Start right in. I always use a piece of scrap paper behind my Bible journaling page, especially so when I'm doing watercolor like I'm doing now. And so I jump right in. I know I want to do a galaxy, and so I start in with black and then some dark purple. And then I wipe away where I know the sky is going to be bright and the hillside's going to be. And if you see, my page is still wet, and so my paint feathered right into the part that I had just wiped away. And that's the way it works with watercolor. When your page is wet, the watercolor will splay and feather, and it's a good thing, but you have to know when it's going to do that in order to utilize it. So right now I'm doing it again. I wanted to start on one of my little shepherds, but my page is still wet, and for some reason my brain wasn't working. And so I'm like, oh, I have to dry my page before I start in with my shepherd. So on a dry page, the paint will stay in one place. But when the page is wet, it'll feather everywhere. So I'm probably going to dry the page again before I start in with my shepherd. And this is the same for I'm going to do the galaxy up above. I want my page to be wet because I want it to swirl together. So you'll see me set into that in a little bit, but now because my page is dry, I can actually do the little shepherd guys. And I'm not really good with details with people right now, and so I kind of wanted these guys to look a little blobby, a little abstract. You wouldn't know if you just looked at this. You're like, what is she painting? But if you read Luke 2, you'll see, like, oh, she's painting the shepherds in the field and the angels come sing. And so you have to know the context of the story to be able to understand those three little blobs. And so I started up with my galaxy a little bit more, and this is my favorite watercolor set. I use it all the time. These are opaque watercolors from Pelican, and the reason these are my favorite is because they're opaque. It makes it really easy to build a galaxy with them. And with the galaxy, you have to set in with a lot of paint. And so right now I'm just putting some tiny touches on the hills with the sheep. And I'm not using acrylic white paint. This is watercolor white paint, and it's not feathering because my page is dry. So I usually, with my stars, if I don't want the watercolor to be absorbed into the page, I usually use acrylic, but sometimes I don't. This time I didn't end up doing that. So I'm setting in right now with a uniball pen. This is a silver uniball pen, and they're really fun to use because you can use them over watercolor. You'll see in a second. I actually feather it into my hillside with water and like that. And they're really fun to use, but you have to be so careful with them because they're messy. So just be careful if you use a uniball pen, but they look beautiful. Now with my galaxy, I know that I want the word to still be readable, but if I want to get a pretty looking galaxy, I know I have to put the paint on really heavily. So I put the paint really heavily over the margin because I know that if I want a good galaxy, it would cover up the words. So I'm going to do my really good galaxy in the margin, and you can see I'm setting in with some detail. I'm just dabbing color around and trying to make it look like a pretty flow. I add some salt because that creates a depth. Word of warning, if you start using salt and it gets into your palette, it can be really hard to get out. So just be careful if you ever introduce salt into your watercolor palette, because you'll be like, why is my paint doing this feather interesting thing when it's supposed to be like a flat color? Well, it's because there's salt in your palette, and you have to be careful. So right now, all I did was take some watercolor white and I flicked it onto my page, and it gave me like a blob right in the middle, and to me, it's like that could be the star that announces Jesus' birth. And so I absolutely love the way it turned out. And so I'm just doing little final touches on the hill, and I'll give the shepherd some sticks. But overall, one of my favorite things to do with watercolor is paint galaxies, and watercolor is a lot of fun to play with. So I would really encourage you, if you haven't tried it yet, to just play around with it, experiment, because watercolor is really fun. I actually sell this set on my website. Before this, I talk about more about watercolor if you want to learn more, and in my next video I have a little devotional about wood too. So go to the description to find those links, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.